Hey, what's up guys? Welcome to iNVision Prototypes. Today I'm going to show you how to deal with a panel that is warped after you finish welding it. In most cases, most places we just skim coat that with some body filler and call it a day. Unfortunately, I'm not most cases. I have this OCD thing for getting surfaces just right. So first thing you have to do is understand what happens during the welding process. This fender surface was perfect after we finished wheeling it. And so is this panel here and this flange. When we brought them together, we made sure that the edges came together perfectly and all the tacks were consistent from top to bottom. And then I took and ran one continuous TIG weld from the bottom all the way up to the top and stopped here. And tried to run that as consistently and as steady as I could. I did get some warpage that happened through this area here. I'm only human. One way to tell if you have some warping, if you can't see it, is to use your fluorescent lights in the shop if you have them. And you can see that they kind of wander throughout the panel. Another way is to use a TIG wire, lay it over top of the surface, and just bridge the areas. And you can see there's a small spot here where my thumb is, another spot about 4 inches to the right of my thumb, and then a little bit right here. So I can take and drag this wire over the surface, and the rest of the panel is perfect all the way down. So the warping happened in through here in the location of the weld, and that's normal. So what happened after we finished welding is the weld shrunk, and that caused the panel to kind of waver. So what we have to do, we have to very carefully stretch the weld by plenishing it, because it's not very far off. We're within a 1/16 and maybe less of an inch. And we have to plenish it so that we bring up this surface through here, this low spot, up so it's consistent with this edge. This isn't too bad here, but we have to bring up this spot through here. And then again, there's a few little things through there. So we haven't welded this quarter panel onto the car yet, just for this reason. There's a wheel well in here. I can't get up inside to reach around the trunk. It's very difficult. My arms aren't long enough. So what we're going to do is take the quarter panel off the car and work it on the table. And then, once we're all done with that front area through there, we're going to take and deal with this area through here. Now, if I lay my rod up on top here, again, it is really, really close. Like, what you're looking for is daylight between the rod and the body panel. I'm trying to bridge the wire across the panel as far as I can to maintain a consistent curve. If I block it from here to here with my fingers, it doesn't do much. Yeah, you know, it's 3 inches apart. And what we need to do is take and bridge this as far apart as possible. And from what I'm seeing, there's a little low spot here, high spot here, low spot here. Now this high spot is the same as the surrounding end high spots. End high spots? I guess so. So what we have to do is bring up this area, and then we'll have a nice consistent surface. Now there's a few little things through here. Again, we have to take, because of this, it caused some tension through here. And if we take and lay the rod up on top, you see that it is a little bit high. This area through here is a little bit low. So what we'll do is plenish this area here, make this curvature consistent all the way through, because the curvature is again nice right in through here. And another way you can tell is by taking this rod and bending it over the panel. And I can see right away that I have kind of a trough here. And it's really minute. You probably won't even see it on the camera. Now another thing you can do is take a file and play it over the top surfaces. And I'll show you what that looks like. Now you can see here, here, and through here, we're touching with the file. But right there and right there, those are low spots. So those have to be brought up, because this is a consistent surface all the way up. And we're touching here. This little dark spot, that also has to be brought up from the inside to come up and match up with the point we have there. Now there's a third way you can tell if you have highs and lows. You take a long piece of sandpaper and just bridge it over the panel, like that. And you can see here, you have the sandpaper scratching the surface, there, through here. But here's a dark spot, bit of a dark spot there, and up and through here is a bit funny looking. So we have to take and plenish that out until we have a nice consistent surface that has been sanded all the way down. So this is going to take some time to do this. I'll bring you guys in after we get this quarter panel off the car. I'll just show you basically what you have to do to plenish the surfaces so that we get a nice consistent flow from top to bottom without any highs and lows. It's not very far off. Like, even some high build primer at this point would take care of it. But I just want to show you that you can get the metal to exactly where you need it and not have to use any fillers whatsoever. When this quarter panel was on the car at the time, This area here wasn't welded because we had that rod in behind and I wasn't able to finish it properly. So what we're going to do is there's a piece of metal inside there. We're going to take and remove that, bring the two pieces together and weld that. And then that'll be finished because this arc is right where we need it to be. Just that rod was in our way, so that was left for a later day, which is today. This little tail, which is what I cut off of here, was up in here like that. Took a pair of snips, snuck in there, cut that out. So now we can take and bring these two surfaces together. And what I'm going to do first is just use a dolly that basically matches the diameter of the rod that was there, and just bring them in close with a hammer. What I'm doing here is, this was a bit high through here, so I'm holding the dolly towards me and I'm hitting off the dolly, like on the other side of the dolly. I'm not hitting on the dolly to peen the surfaces because we don't want to create more material here. We want to have that surface come down. Now that we're really close, I'm going to take the slapper, distribute the surface of the force over top of a wider area, and bring them in a little bit closer. Now we take and weld that up all the way around the corner and work that in, and then we can take and finalize this edge and make sure we have a nice consistent radius using a slapper and this dolly. One thing I didn't mention was the fact, you like my gloves, eh? That's what happens when you grind in these gloves, it just kind of burns away. Anyway, we took and braced this body panel, a quarter panel, so there's no tension created anywhere on any of the flanges, any of the surfaces. The last thing you want is to work the panel in with tension on it. Not sure if you guys can see on your TV, but this area through here is a bit low. You can see the surface, that's perfect right there. This area through here is low. So what we're going to do is we're going to plenish this and bring that up. The other thing when you're working a panel like this and you have a weld through here, the back side of the weld has to be finished just as nice as the face of the weld. Because if you have a high spot, then it'll sit on the high spot on the dolly and it'll keep driving that upward. You want both surfaces to be perfectly flush with each other. You don't want any bumps or anything in between them. Same thing here. There's a little bit of a low spot there. So I put the dolly there and worked around that, allowing that to come up. This dolly has a bit of a radius just for wheel well arches. So you develop dollies as you go along. I forget what this was for, used for something. I'm sure when I go to use it again, I'll remember. But right now, all I need is this one. And you need some weight behind this. Like this can be clamped in a vise and held in place. In this area here, I want to make sure that my outside edge is perfect all the way through first. I'm not working the inside edge just yet. A wider slapper will distribute the force over a wider surface and therefore normalize your bumps. After tightening up the edge with the dolly, I now took a flat dolly, flat surface dolly, called a heel. Looks like a heel of a boot. And I'm blending back into the pan a little bit, just touching it up. We're not moving mountains, we're just smoothing things out. Much better. So there's a bit of a low spot here earlier, and I was looking at my Sharpie line, which we scribed when it was on the buck many moons ago. And I noticed that this radius here was a bit flat. It kind of went across instead of following the Sharpie. So by bringing this around, that allowed that to come up. It's feeling really good right there. This area here looks to be a bit high. What I have to do is take and stretch this flange just a little bit. I'm going to get the dolly and a hammer that has a relatively sharp face on it. Because I want to peen, and I don't want to just bump it, I want to peen it. And notice I was creating a bit of a sharp edge there. I don't want that to happen. So now I'm going to take and go back to my round rod dolly and work it in again. just using some 120 grit paper, pass it over the panel. All we're doing is highlighting. Nice and gentle. And that's coming in quite nicely. All the scratch marks are consistent. The depths are consistent. So we know that that's good. Now I'm going to work the radius. And again, that's coming in really well. A bit of a low spot right there. You can see how it's shinier than anything else. And I'm just going to take and bump it just a little bit from the underside with a small face hammer. And I mean, it's just a light tap. That's all you need. And that should be gone. A little harder tap. I can use the dolly from the underside too. And a wider face, just bump that up. And that's gone. So if you want to detail the panel to this level, this is going to take you a while. And that's why a lot of people opt for using the other technique of surface enhancing the panels. Now this is called top-down plenishing. I'm not smacking the dent out from underneath because that's not what I want to do. I want to stretch the material as if we're English wheeling it, but using a hammer and dolly and bring that up. You can hear the dolly being hit as I'm plenishing. Okay, you see it's come up a little bit. What I'm going to do is switch over to the slapper. Right now I'm just blending. I don't want to create a pimple there by hitting with the hammer. Coming up, but very slowly. And that's what you want. You want to control the surface upward. Let's hit it with some sandpaper and see what shows up. You see the scratch marks, the diagonal scratches? Are cutting from here to here perfectly, right through. Right here is still a little bit low. A few telltale plenishing marks there. As you can now really see right there and right there. Two little eyes. So we'll work those out. Every time I tap it with the slap from the top, you can see the metal gets a little bit shinier, and that means it's been hit. So we're almost getting a uniform surface here with the slapper. A little bit dark there yet, so we got to bring that up. Oh no, I think I sanded it right through. No, that looks just about perfect right there. It's a little bit low here, so we're just going to tap that up from the underside while supporting that with a dolly. Now I was going to pass the DA over this and should take away those 120 grit sanding marks and clean it up. We've cleaned up this front arch here. We've taken care of any little things going on in this area where we had a joint. I'm going to go ahead and clean up this, which doesn't need too much. Just going to touch it up with a slapper. But what we got to focus on is cleaning up this bottom edge. When I was rolling it over the buck earlier, the frame table was actually in my way to get a proper approach in with the slapper and the hammer. So it's kind of wavy. So, we have to take and clean this corner up a bit. There's a bit too much material there, so we're going to deal with that. And take and make sure that this bottom edge of the fender is perfect. I've got this nice chunk of flat bar here. I'm going to turn it into a dolly basically because I want a nice consistent edge, basically level out any bumps that we have here. And then I'll fine tune that with the dollies. It allows me to spread my dolly over a longer area here. This is a curve through here. And right now we have kind of a straight line because of the flange. It needs to be shrunk a little bit. So I'm going to pull out my little tucking tool. It's basically a manual pull max, and you'll see what I mean in a minute. And we're just going to tuck this edge ever so slightly. This tool works wonders. Okay? A bit of a rod goes into a bit of a divot there, and it allows me to create some tucks here. Now, I want the tuck to come out. Not doing a lot, just a little bit. We'll smack those tucks into themselves, thereby shrinking them. Create a few more tucks around the corner here. This is just a short glimpse into what goes into cleaning up a panel, or finalizing, I should say, finalizing a panel. You can spend days on this, just working it back and forth until it's perfect. Let's work this top edge here now. It's a bit wavy. So again, I got a different style dolly, a little bit longer. Once we get this edge perfect, end of the dolly popped up. Don't want that. Okay, so a little low spot right through here. Just you feel with your hand. You run your hand over it, you can feel it. Use the wire here, tell us just how much. So from here up to right there. This area here is down maybe 1/16 of an inch, maybe less. You can see it in the reflections. So we'll plenish that a little bit. By plenishing, I mean we're using an on-dolly technique to work that up. Seems counterintuitive. By hitting it down, you'd expect it to go down, but you're actually mashing the metal, allowing it to come to stretch out and come up. Every time I hit it, you can see the little shiny mark from the slapper. It's coming in well through here, a bit funny through here yet. I can use my handheld plenishing hammer to do the same thing, but I'm not moving very much material, so I just want full control using a manual hammer and dolly method here. It's like an accident or fender in an accident. We popped it out to finish it off. I'd use a plenishing hammer, the handheld one, the pneumatic one. But here, we're just fine tuning. this case, I'm using the slapper from underneath because I'm not plenishing really. Technically you are, but I'm just going very lightly and just cleaning things up. It's almost like washing the panel. So when we wash the panel in the wheel, basically doing the same thing here. See, this one has a more radius face on it, so I can sneak in on the inside. Double check with the wire, and we are about 75–80% there. It's all good here. I have a little bit of a low spot right there. And as they used to say in the Saturday morning cartoons, that's all, folks. That's done. So we can pass a piece of sandpaper over that. Sanding block, I should say. Checks for any highs and lows, but welding wire, it doesn't lie. And we are consistent all the way through. So that's it. So we just finished off this back area and that feels fantastic. That's done. Wheel arch is finished, top of the fender, that's all blended in smooth. This area around here is done, and now we can either choose between doing this peak down the center of the rear fender or the front edge. And since I'm right-handed, we're gonna jump in and finish up the front edge where the fender meets the quarter panel. Get that finished, plenished out, and then we'll go ahead and finish up the rear peak. All right, guys, well, that's coming in really nice. So what I'm doing right now is I'm using a file to cut down and show me any high spots. We used a soft disc earlier, cleaned up the weld, and right now with the quarter panel mounted on the car and not moving, I'm able to file the top edges down, tap up any low spots, and just keep smoothing this out until we have a nice crisp line all the way up. There's gonna be a tail light here, but until that goes in, I wanna make sure that we have a nice feature connecting the two areas here. It's just gonna be a matter of time until this is done. I've worked my way down from the top. It's getting nicer and nicer. A couple of things here have to be cleaned up, and that's going to be it. I hope you guys enjoyed this little video on hammer and dolly techniques, plenishing methods, and how to correct a panel after you develop some warping in it after welding. Let me know if it helps you guys out. If you have any comments or questions, put them down below, and I appreciate you guys watching. Take care.